Hello and welcome. We are going to be chatting about Wind and Truth. I haven't gotten Balerian's opinion about it. I know that Aspiring has many opinions about it, most of
Yeah,
them
so to
bad.
clarify, by Wind and Truth, to mean the early release chapters, neither of us have read any further.
Yeah, the
Oh,
book's not coming until Tuesday.
No, the book is out.
I mean, the book is out, but I'm not going to get it until
Ah,
Tuesday.
okay, makes sense. I'm
I've gotten
not
through a lot
reading
of
that.
the I've gotten through yeah, we're only going to be talking about the early release chapters.
Yeah, they
Um
released a lot of chapters. Like there's
yeah.
Yeah,
33 chapters, the prologue, and a couple of interludes. So he released. If I were releasing sample chapters of my soon-to-be released novel, I don't think I'd release that much of it. I mean, that's just me. I don't know, whatever.
so
But
anyways, how do we want to start this discussion?
I guess we can kind of start at the beginning where we have the reveal of exactly what Gavilar.
Yes,
oh
okay,
yeah,
let's go
prologue.
through this chapter by chapter, I guess, then. Reactor Mag.
Yeah, the prologue was actually kind of interesting. It was one of the more interesting bits in the book.
It is. I would not have had a problem with it initially if it were not for later stuff I ended up reading that made me think certain details which I thought were intentional were actually fuck ups.
Oh,
Really? Okay. Please. We can kind of go into context, but like, what would you say was the main thing that
Okay. So this is something that I thought is a fuck up later on. But so when you guys are reading this, did it feel to you as if the voice or how the Stormfather was speaking seemed a little off?
Yes, he
yes.
definitely very different. I would agree with that.
Yes.
That is pretty fair actually.
Yes, this is something when we initially read it, I assumed this was intentional because I swear I thought it almost seemed like there was a flip where the Stormfather changed how he spoke to how differently to how he kind of was back when we first saw him, and I thought this was indicating a change with the bond. I am no longer as sure because the Stormfather kind of seems to have changed how he talked a lot now, weirdly, which I'm very upset by because normally his lines are bangers. I never hated a single line of his. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Is
because that
this yeah, is this part of us becoming more human by associating with humans more? But then he was like that with Galvalar, and that's before
Hmm.
he associated with Dalinar. So
yeah. The slight problem is if we want to say the bond makes him act differently and more human, he's had a bigger bond with Dalinar than he's ever had with Gavilar. He never went past the first oath. So if anything, we should have already been seeing the Stormfather be changed. But we haven't. He has acted nearly the same.
yeah, and
So that excuse doesn't work well.
yeah, and he's shown. I think he's shown in earlier books becoming gradually more human as he interacts with Dalinar. So why would he be more human already when interacting with Galar, then get less human, then get more human again? Or am I totally off?
Yeah, I think that that is a very good critique to have. I didn't. It was kind of weird that it was. He immediately goes for like like it seems like I don't know what exactly was going on with Gavilar. It was it was
They've made him a really egotistical maniac.
a
Yeah,
little bit
Which
actually. Yeah.
which
yeah,
I don't completely hate, as I admittedly wasn't a fan of it, but I didn't hate it. The only thing I would say I hated from Gavilar is the fact that he didn't give the thing to Zet knowingly. He was trying to hand it to the Stormfather. I'm like, no, you did not have to change that moment retroactively. it was actually a really good moment that he was so desperate to give it to someone to have it be saved, and he gave it to the person who fucking killed him. Because he needed someone to take it. Instead, you have it be that he's basically fucking not hallucinating, but he's just being an idiot and trying to hand it to a being that can't hold a fucking gen.
Yeah, kinda. Yeah, that's actually fair. Yeah, that was very odd. I definitely read it a little bit differently, where I was just like, he's desperate. Like, both readings kind of work, but yeah, it kind of weirdly does lessen the moment a little bit.
Yeah, I was fine with the chapter initially, but yeah, hindsight, I've now started to wonder how many decisions were intentional and how much actually seems to have just be a symptom I see more and more in this book. Which, by the way, so I want to maybe skip a little bit ahead just because we were talking about retroactive things. This book is filled with retroactive changes that are stupid.
Okay.
So I'm going to just skip ahead to information given in future chapters because it's relevant to Rhythm of War has been kind of fucked over. And I'm not even the biggest fan of that book, but I kind of hate that they've kind of undid or let down so much shit that happened with it. So first is, the entire Shallan Adolin arc in Rhythm of War is about recruiting more of the honor spread. And we see them recruit 8.
Yeah.
That entire fucking arc, which was annoying as shit. And
It's
it
now a
results
plot
in
cul-de-sac.
Yeah, it's a
now.
plot. It doesn't result in much at all.
So, Shallan and Vale and Radiant. In the last book, Shallan doesn't need Vale and Radiant anymore, but now she still does.
Oh, yes! That
Or am I
fucking
confused?
reminds me! No, wait, you reminded me, Valerian. The second complaint with that. Vale is fucking alive still! What?
Yeah, she's just kind of a less dominant personality, which was kind of weird.
You made it seem like we were witnessing her death. You made it written as a fucking death scene, as if she was gonna disappear. And she is basically as much there as she ever could be. She just doesn't fucking control her body. She still speaks in her fucking head and talks to Shallan, like with full-on conversations. What the fuck? Like, here's the thing. I wasn't a fan of having Vale just die. I didn't think, I was like, oh, we're just gonna get rid of that? Okay. But if you're gonna do that scene, don't just fucking undo it, because it basically was fucking meaningless. And I hated that entire arc because I found it was founded on bullshit.
Yeah, a little bit. It's very frustrating, kind of looking at it from that point of view. I would totally agree. There's a lot. It's a lot, well as there's a lot of problems with time wasting in this book series,
Yes,
or in this book
is...
in particular, and it just feels like Brandon didn't really know where he was going with this whole arc, which is a little bit frustrating.
Yes, that is, time wasting is another issue which we shall touch on more deeply. But yeah, I want to just kind of make it clear, Rhythm of War has been made pointless. Because, let's see, what else is there? Yeah, so we did the honor spread, we did Shallan, what else was there? Kaladin is now just a fucking therapist. So we go through all the arc with him going to kind of accepting himself, and he's still about as mopey.
Yeah, he's about the same. Yeah.
Which I'm like, okay, you know we can go to some sort of resolution, right?
I did like his coming to Shinovar and seeing the plants and stuff. That was a nice
I like
scene.
that, but it's so small, and it's also, again, like, I'm sorry, you need to do a lot more. There was so much we need to see with okay, because here's the thing. Kaladin and Zet should have fucking tension, and there is so long before I finally see Zet finally mention the fact that I am being forced to bring you, the fucker who killed me. You fucking reaped my soul out of my body. I was dead until a fucking herald put my soul back in. I can hear the souls crying in pain because of you. It takes several chapters before Zet finally tells him this. It's like, thank you. Thank you for mentioning it. These two have history. There should be some talking between them, and there's so little. I get Zet is a quiet person. But fuck. Create some way to get them to talk. And also, so the other thing that's undone. So, we have Odium's contract with Dalinar. There is a crap ton of emphasis on there not being loopholes, presumably so that way we can have, like, the action in the first part of the books with battles and stuff still happening. That's what I assumed was its purpose, and to not have everyone wonder, okay, so what is Odium's, like, trick up the sleeve or whatever? And then we have Taravangian mention, like, there is something that they did not account for that he can do. Something that they missed. And then in this book, they just go, oh, yeah, he's a new Odium, so he can just use loopholes. Doesn't matter about the emphasis we put in the previous book, he can just do it.
That one, I'm just like, I'm conflicted about that one a little bit, because they do establish that the power is separate from the person, and while the power of Odium is bound by the contract, some of that didn't necessarily translate over to the other side, or transfer over to
but then it's picking and choosing. That
yes,
is the issue.
precisely.
It is you are picking and choosing what does and does not transfer, which is a bit wishy-washy. And again, you brought attention to it. If you hadn't brought attention to it, no one would have cared. Because we always tend to assume with contracts there is something in the wording that people can exploit. But you specifically tried to make it so, hey, spirit of the contract must be withheld. You cannot actively look for loopholes. But then you say that the person who gets it next doesn't have to follow this rule. Okay, does Dalinar still have to fucking follow it when this guy could just break it? Why?
Well, is he breaking it, or just... Is he breaking it, really?
I mean, they explicitly said no loopholes. And then they're saying he can, because he's new. And that, for some reason, is not held by the power. The rest of the contract is, but this is not. Is that my issue here?
Yeah, I get it. I'm just like... I get where you're coming from. I'm just kind of
There's also
like...
this.
Yeah.
There's also this. Unless they make it so the line that Taravangian says means something else and not this, it means that ending line where he has this sudden epiphany where they don't realize what he can do,
It's pretty mundane.
just the most obvious thing ever.
Yeah, makes it pretty mundane, I guess.
Yeah, it's like, because I was honestly really excited to see, okay, what clever thing is Taravangian gonna come up with? And it ends up just being something so obvious, I'm just waiting for the characters to fucking catch up to me, and I'm like, why am I having the characters need to catch up to me? I should be the one trying to follow here. These are some of the most brilliant people in the world. And I've reached a conclusion many chapters before they do.
Yeah, that's a little bit rough, I would agree.
There's quite a lot of therapy in the novel.
Yeah.
Yes, I do not like this. I think Therapist Kaladin is an awful direction for his character to go. So let's focus on this now for a bit. Kaladin, as a character, there's a few places you can take him with his arc and protection and having to accept losses and stuff. A place where I could see his character going is he's never going to have less people to protect. He will always have people to protect, even if there is no war. It's not like when war stops, there's no people needing protection. There's always going to be something like that. and he's gonna have to maybe come to terms and how. Like honestly, I could expect him just trying to travel the world and try and find people to protect if that's something he felt he wanted or needed to do. And that is one route I can see his character going. A lot of people think he might instead become like king of Urethru as Dalinar does whatever, and so he'd be able to help more people in that position instead. There's like those are two routes you could go. What route I don't think he can go is fucking trying to be a therapist, because who the fuck are you protecting? One, you are not a good candidate for a therapist. You are as mentally unwell as it comes. You have no idea what the fuck you're doing. I don't know why Wit put the idea of being a therapist in your head. Two, therapist is not protection, that is healing. He's actually ended up doing the stuff edge dancers do. Edge dancers are the ones who listen to people and tend to try and help them. He is currently doing the oaths and directions of an entire different order.
Yeah, to be fair, he was already doing. I think already in the last was it in Rhythm of War or in Oathbringer that was already like meeting people and talking about their issues and stuff like that.
It was Rhythm of War, which which I'm guessing was like the first inklings of that, but I'm like, that is still like not a good direction to go for his character. It does not fit at all with his journey. His journey is all about protection, not about listening to people or trying to help them heal. He is not a healer. He is like able to heal people, but as in like the physical sense. But he also doesn't he's not like becoming a healer ever. He had to come to terms that he's never going to be that. That was part of what happened in Rhythm of War.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Rhythm of War, because in Rhythm of War, doesn't at the end he comes and rescues Dalinar? Or am I confused again? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, right.
Fine.
All right. Yeah. In Rhythm of War, he ends up saving
his father.
And Urithiru.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which is, again, like part of his arc with his dad was having to basically tell him, I've tried the doctor thing out, it just does not work with me. I'll always end up being in the position where I'm fighting someone and needing to protect someone. He needed to actually see it to see if he could be that, and he found he could not. And also, his odes are just basically fucking irrelevant now. I swear to God, they are not acknowledged.
How so?
A lot of his odes tend to be focused around protecting people. He has not so much as thought about protecting someone for the entirety of these chapters. He has only thought about trying to get Zeth to talk.
Or try to fix Zeth, yeah.
Yeah, it's, again, the odes have become irrelevant. He's now doing something very different from anything he normally does.
Yeah, it's a little bit frustrating.
It seems like almost all the characters are therapists now, because Shallan does therapy to Gaz and to Notam and to who else? Like Kalek, I mean.
Yeah. I want to emphasize crappy therapy, by the way.
And even Lift is a bit of a therapist.
Yes, but for Lift, it's the only character that would make sense, because that actually is part of how her order works. It's listening to people. That's a lot of what she does. And her own novella had, like, basically what they've been trying to do, but better. She basically listens to the Herald, the insane fucking Herald, and tries to get him to open his eyes, and manages to succeed.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough, then.
What other thing, since I've been picking which things to complain about, what is the other thing we wish to mention? You can pick good stuff too, but there's not much to choose from, and I'll probably say otherwise.
Yeah, one of my main issues with this book is that the pacing is really bad.
Yes, it has been this is the last 10 days before a conflict that basically decides the fate of the world. And there's no fucking tension. I really hate that.
And that's not necessarily unrelated to the therapy thing.
Yeah, it feels like the whole thing is extremely meandering in terms of the plot, and it's really frustrating.
Okay, wait. There's something I've said about this before that I think also relates kind of to this. As the books have progressed, our main characters have become more and more separate. They used to sometimes go on some separate journeys, but they tended to support each other's plot lines and would end up typically conjoining at some point. Since Rhythm of War, they have started to become more and more separate, and with this book, their plot lines no longer seem to support each other at all. They all seem to be doing a bunch of really separate stuff that doesn't really help what other people are doing towards what is like the main events of the world. And this is partly in that they're doing stuff very separate from what is the main story, which is the conflict with Odium. There is now, however, just so much more focus on irrelevant things like their mental issues, when in previous books their mental issues was something done alongside what they were doing. There were challenges getting in the way of what they were trying to accomplish. Now it is almost the main focus.
Yeah,
The other stuff, yeah.
there's a sort of a connection with Shallan and Dalinar in that the Ghost Bloods are supposedly going to break into the spiritual realm where Dalinar is, or something like that. So there's a bit of a connection there, but it's still, yeah.
It's far less so and far less well built, and especially since Shallan and Dalinar are just doing two separate things that kind of end up interacting with each other, but they don't talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, I am sort of interested in the bit where Dalinar goes to the time when humans arrived at Roshar. That's potentially interesting.
Because it gives you a lot of like answers to the history we've been wondering, though I don't like how they've made it to the Stormfather as an outright liar.
Yeah, that was a little weird.
It doesn't really fit with his character. He's also this. Okay, now we have to go to this now. The Stormfather doing the shit with Honor's plan feels very different compared to what the Stormfather was when he, in book 2, was willing to just kill all the humans. He fucking brought a high storm to wash away their corpses. How was this related to this Honor's plan? You have not given a shit about Honor's plan if he had one. You have only listened to his orders that he's given you, but you haven't actually given a shit. So don't tell me you're suddenly going, no, we are following the plan. Don't mess with the plan. It's working. What the fuck do you mean? What is the plan? You weren't following a plan. You were outright just gonna let them die.
We have part of a plan. I don't know, like 60%. That's not a plan.
You were actively just trying to kill Radiance for a time. Like, you supported that. You didn't want Radiance to form. You wanted them to die. You specifically hate Cal.
Maybe Stormfather is actually someone else.
I've unironically heard this after reading the prologue, that like the first thing we thought was somehow the Stormfather was Odium or some shit. Like,
yeah.
He was such a different character. That's genuinely what some people thought, that it was just a different character.
He's being skin changed.
That would not surprise me, actually.
So, yeah, the Stormfather's character being just weirdly changed and downright ruined for me is just like, what? Why? He was like my perfect character for a time. Like, every line he said was golden. I loved how he spoke and interacted with things. It fit him so well. One of those, every word had value with him, and now it's like, you fucked it. You fucked his dialogue. You fucked how he works as a character. Why? He's a small character, but still.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, such is life.
All right.
So-
Oh, yes. Okay. Now I'm going to talk about this because I need to. Anti-light.
Okay,
Why? Okay, you go first.
yeah, no, you go first. Yeah.
No, I'll talk my shit off. I want to hear what you have to say.
So I don't have a problem with anti-light, but I totally understand why you might.
Who? What?
Anti-light. The
Oh, okay.
So, let me give you my little journey with anti-light then. To explain. When I read it, I was not a fan because I was like, where the fuck is this coming from and all that? Because this was also very Cosmere related, and I know a lot about how the Cosmere interact with each other. So I'm like, okay, this is an interesting development. I wasn't gonna immediately judge it harshly though, because I wanted to see what he was doing with it and see if it served a kind of point. And that is where we come to this book, and it is barely being fucking acknowledged. Then I'm like, why? You have added what is an outright game changer. This thing is capable of killing gods. It kills immortals. And you barely acknowledge its existence despite the fact it was invented a day ago and is literally what brought a god to the negotiating table. Odium went to Dalinar to negotiate because of that thing's being created, and he realized, shit, the world is now gonna fucking end. They were talking about the singers and Prashendi like, we literally cannot kill them all. We can't. It's just that they're an immortal army, and I'm like, one, no, you can literally kill all the singers and they would die. And also, two, you literally now have a weapon capable of outright killing them to their very soul. So no, you're very capable of killing the Fused now. You literally made their weapon just a day ago. And why have you not considered using it as also just a fucking explosive? This thing explodes enough to just, like, one gemstone was able to kill 2 people in a room. Literally just start making some anti-stormlight and then lobbing it at some ships. Like the ships that are coming to Thalia, why is no one considered just exploding them? Unironically. Anti-light is like your most powerful explosive. Why is no one using this?
Yeah, I don't think Brandon totally thought through that.
But why hasn't he? He is the person to do that. He is always doing creative applications for his powers. That is like his whole thing. How have you not just considered, let's use the anti-light as a fucking explosive, at least? And why have they not even talked about how to get more anti-void light to just fucking throw at the Fused? Because that will help you kill them permanently. They will literally be unable to be reborn. You have the weapon for it.
A good question, but for another time.
The only people who've used it are the fucking Ghost Bloods, which like makes some sense because the Ghost Bloods should be like ahead on a lot of applications for this kind of stuff, considering they have more knowledge. But they shouldn't be the only ones using it. Like, for fuck's sake. No. We didn't even talk about how Vasher is the one who created it. I'm like, why is Vasher? Why did you create this? Of the people to be able to create it, it does make sense. He has perfect pitch, and so he can kind of like recognize the 2 tones. And that it makes sense. But this is a character who created Nightblood and seems to regret it heavily.
And technically, and arguably, this is way worse, or at least
it is.
Has way more destructive capabilities. It's actually a really good point.
Yeah, it's like, you created Nightblood, a weapon that's literally capable of just killing the vessel of a shard, killing the vessel of a fucking god. You regret the creation of this weapon. And then you decided to just make anti-light, which is something as, if not more powerful and versatile. At least Nightblood is one weapon. Anyone can create anti-light.
Who is this Vasher chap?
So
Zyle.
Yeah, his name is Xylandis, but Vasher is from Warbreaker. He is the creator of Nightblood. Co-creator of Nightblood. He literally killed the other creator because I think she liked creating Nightblood. And he didn't want anyone else making it ever again. So he has great regret over creating Nightblood, a really powerful weapon. And now we find out he decided to go to Roshar and make anti-light, which is a far more versatile and powerful weapon. Why?
And this is Warbreaker, you say? Okay.
Yes, why have you done this? Have you learned nothing?
Evidently not.
For fuck's sake. Okay, what else?
I was sort of interested when they mentioned... Did I hear them correctly? Someone mentioned Lord Kelsier, right?
Yep.
I did hear that right. Yeah. So that's interesting. Was that one of the Ghost Bloods who was mentioning Kelsier?
Yep. Yeah, so you might have not read the Mistborn stuff, I guess.
I did.
Kelsier is basically a leader of the Ghost Bloods. Admittedly, this starts throwing some weird tangles in that, since it seems like there's parts of the Ghost Bloods that do not listen to him, which is interesting, and I want to learn more about that. I have a feeling we're not going to. But this does actually answer my question and why the attitude on Roshar is so different from Kelsier's crew on Scadrial, because a lot of it contradicts how he runs a crew. And them being actively against Kelsier in some ways does actually somewhat explain that.
Yeah, because I know Lord Kelsier from the first Mistborn trilogy, and the last I saw him was in the Secret History, and I don't know what he's been up to since then.
Pretty much all I know is that sometime after Secret History, he's managed to get high into the ranks of the Ghost Bloods. I'm not sure if he created them or not.
I think he created them.
Okay, so he created the Ghost Bloods. Okay,
so
Also, I know his focus is on protecting Scadrial. I don't know if that focus is necessarily represented by those we see on Roshar.
Yeah, like what the connections between him and whatever the Ghost Bloods are up to, which I'm not even... To be honest, I'm still not sure what the Ghost Bloods are really up to. Maybe we're not meant to be sure yet. Maybe it's meant to be something we gradually find out. And that's been going on for a while without getting exactly what they're about, apart from the fact that they're from another planet, which obviously if they're connected with Kelsier, then that's, yeah.
Yeah, I kind of was hoping I'd get more on their motive, because we're now getting to the really thing of they want Ba Ado Ashrim. I'm hoping to learn why. We have not been made clear on that. I hope that's explained.
Yeah, hopefully.
I've gotten a little bit further into it, so I have been able to read it. And so it is explained. I don't know how satisfying it will be.
Did you get past? Sorry, did you get past chapter 33?
I am currently halfway through.
Oh, okay. You got the book then. You got the physical copy.
Audiobook. I don't read.
Oh, right. You don't read
it. I will probably not be starting this until I finish Dungeon Carl 3. Partly just out of annoyance of the sample chapters, but I will read it and probably plow through it really fast. And we can talk about it then.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm also in a group chat where people have been reading it nonstop since it's out, and I've been hearing things, and I'm like, okay.
These are concerning, yeah.
There's many concerning.
Yeah, I find this book really frustrating.
Concerning.
Yeah.
It is the first hint of what I fear most seeing with Sanderson, which is him starting to prioritize the wrong things badly.
Yeah.
This is a book which... How is this not enough torment?
Yeah. Especially since we have Wheel of Prime Season 3 coming out next year, which is going to be great.
Speaking of concerning, How
If we
old
run
is
out of... How old
how
is who?
old
Liv?
is Renarin?
Oh, I think he's
Um,
close to adult. Why?
I think he's like 18 or something.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
He's 19 or 20.
Still kind of young, though.
Okay, I'll say this. I am not against the gate thing, okay? I knew this was going to be happening a long time ago. It was confirmed in the blob. And the execution is not the greatest, but I considered their, like, talking chapter, like, one of the better ones that got released. I have heard since that there has been, like, 5 other Bridge 4 characters that have ended up being confirmed this, though. And I am going kind of like, why?
It kind of feels a little bit like Sanderson is trying to branch out into a market that that has progressively ruined a good chunk of our favorite franchises.
Not just like try to branch out in, because I'd say Ari was able to do that somewhat, because we had Ratchet, I think was her name. She was lesbian, and it was
Yeah,
fine. It was
yeah, it was fine.
I considered that kind of suitable. It fit in, and it was also kind of tastefully acknowledged with Wayne, which I
Yeah.
liked. And so it's like he already has done that. We've had gay characters even in Stormlight Archive, just not with big focus. That was what Renarin was supposed to be. But there's a lot of things in the book where it's like, why are you focusing on this and not other stuff? Even with Renarin, actually. I don't think this is a book to actually focus on Renarin's sexuality, considering, end of the world.
Yeah, yeah.
And he has his own book in the second half.
And he has, I mean, shouldn't it be more about his abilities and developing his abilities and how that will respond to the situation that they're in?
Right. Yeah. Wait. Let's talk about that. Let's do a really broad overview of Renarin, because this is not the first time this has happened. But yeah, Renarin's character at the beginning was highly defined by his health condition, because he used to have seizures. I'm not sure if you remember this, because it was basically dropped. He got. It's like we maybe saw it once, if that. And it kind of was why he was never in combat, which is not something that was looked well upon in elite society. And this was like part of his like difficulties with social matters. He was part of a very high family, while not being able to conform to the values that were expected of him due to his health, and also just due to his personality. He was also just very shy, thought very differently. He was very un-elite, and this affected him greatly. His Caesars then get just fucking cured.
Yeah.
Which,
So how did they get cured?
Radiant Bond was.
Bond. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's nice.
Yeah, I'm starting to think that was a bad decision, because I'm like, you have sense, and I think even Den made it, so you always had it be that the healing didn't always cure everything if you were like accepted as a part of you enough. And I feel like Caesars you've had from the beginning could honestly be part of that, because that aspect of him was really dropped. But it was at least replaced with, like, they kind of replaced the seizures with his visions. And he was now, again, still very apart, now with a spread that was, like, influenced by the enemy. And he was still having difficulty conforming things, which, again, one of my favorite scenes in Oathbringer is Renarin trying to join the scholars, the elite scholars, which are all women because that's how society works. And he's getting kind of like very nervous being part of it, because they all kind of are like, why the fuck are you here? And then Dragonlord just kind of comes in and says, fuck you. He just sits there and makes everyone else feel uncomfortable, so Renarin feels better.
I should switch to watch season 3.
No,
Basically,
that's
Belong in Asylum was not actually. Oh no! Saying so that's terrible. That's bad.
The fact, like there's like a smidge part of me that wonders if that might be true. But yeah, Renarin has the visions. He's still socially awkward. And by the way, I bring up that team partly because we've been having I think it's safe to agree that some politics have started to influence how things interact with the stuff in the book, and it's getting kind of shoved in. And I just look back at Oathbringer and that scene as a very fitting way to do it that felt natural in the world, because there were gender disparities in Elite society, very clear ones, and they were starting to break them and trying to have them be accepted, which has many parallels in real life, but it still fit in world. It didn't feel forced.
Yeah.
I just need to bring that up. That's like the big. It's fine to have parallels and state politics in it, just not at the cost of shit, which is what's happening now. But yeah. So Renarin gets the visions, and now his entire character and struggle is focused on his relation with Ralan, which I'm like, okay, are we now gonna drop the rest of your character? Because that's currently your main focus, and I'm like, should you not be concerned about the end of the world?
Well, the end of the world happens sometimes.
Why is no one worried about the end of the world? It was such a big fucking tonal shift. They're just fucking sitting on the grass, and then Shallan walks up to them, and it's like, guys, should you not be running and rushing? Time is of the essence. There is stuff to do. You have 10 days.
Why are you so worked up about the end of the world? I don't get it.
You're right. I should not be worked up about the end of the world.
It's the end of the world as we know it. And I feel fine. Gotta say goodbye. Yeah, what?
I just read a message. Let me read this out. This is a spoiler, but I don't fucking care right now. I just read, oh shit, Mosh being turned into an Inquisitor is actually awesome. What?
Oh, yeah.
I heard...
Yeah, do you want me to give the context for why this happens?
Yes. The book has managed to disappoint me enough that I don't care about spoilers.
Okay, so what happens is Taravangian comes to see him, and he talks with him, and then the herald that is in Taravangian's employ informs him, we can totally do that. And so they basically put crystal spikes into Moash's eyes, like he is an Inquisitor. Yeah.
Oh, like an Inquisitor, as an Inquisitor in
from Mistborn, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Holy shit! I actually might be excited for that. That sounds fucking awesome.
That does sound interesting. Yeah. Hey.
By the way, the only thing that's managed to remain good in this book has been Taravangian shit. I don't know why. It's the only thing that
Yeah, Taravangian has remained fairly consistent across these books by virtue of he simply is just like the same character he's always been.
Yeah, and still being fairly clever. Like, the twist regarding him doesn't really, ruin his character. It's just something stupid plot-wise and meta-wise. He, meanwhile, is fine. I will say, I was wondering where the fuck Elle was forever.
Yeah.
I was like, when are we getting this? It just seemed like he was going to be a much bigger figure, and then he's not there till the very end of the sample chapters. And I'm like, you really should have maybe mentioned him in the first 15 chapters, I think that would have been good to see.
Yeah, because they mentioned him at the tail end of Rhythm of War. And where is he? Who is he? What's he doing?
By the way, actually, this might be an actual plot hole I might have caught in the book. Maybe Dunn will correct me if I am wrong. I believe Elle is aware of the new odium at the end of the book, because they say, we need to see if this still works. And everyone assumed it's because of the change in vessels. I always don't know why they had to confirm that.
Yeah, I don't know what is going on there. I will definitely fully agree with that.
I think it might genuinely be a plot hole because it doesn't really make sense otherwise. It really because he also I think he even mentions New Odium. I think he mentions it.
I know that it's weird because in universe after he meets Taravangian, he is composing a poem for Taravangian as the New Odium, and that's my understanding is that timeline wise this this whole thing is happening that I don't know. I think that they have not yet been made aware, from what I understand.
That's what they're trying to make the chaos, but L specifically, at least, I think we genuinely see him know. That's where I'm getting this might, because I think I have Rhythm of War. So give me a sec. I'm actually gonna look if I can just get this stupid thing to fucking work. What do you mean sign in? This is what? Kindle, why have you signed me out?
This is the nice thing about physical books. They can't log you out.
Look, it's really hard getting those though.
Writing is hard. Reading is hard, bro.
Yeah.
I like physical books. This is really hard to get hands on them nowadays. It's easier to get an ebook.
Why? Because they're cheaper?
That too. But also, if I try getting a physical book from a library and it's Stormlight, there's 300 fucking holds, mate. I'm not getting those until 2 years later. It's not even an exaggeration.
Oh,
all right,
wow.
I'm back in. Let me see. Where is my Rhythm of War? Wave Kings, Lost Metal, blah, 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 blah. Do I not own Rhythm of War? Fuck. Okay.
What are we checking?
Never mind, it did not. I swear Doe L knew about New ODM. I don't know why he doesn't, and the timeline does not work otherwise. It's weird.
May as well check my book. Let's see.
Yay, check it.
Let's see, because Ellis comes at the tail end of the book, right?
Yes.
Yeah, is it?
Yeah, it's only one chapter. It's you don't need to search for it. It's one location. It'll make sense.
Yeah, it just right at the tail end.
Okay. Something else I've been really hating is the new stupid wind, night, and stone gods. Why? Why do these exist? Why are you adding new shit?
Yeah.
This is a final book of your part 1 of this 2-part series. Why are you adding new shit that doesn't matter? Fuck off.
Okay, the Pursuer.
You already have beings that are confirmed older than the shards. The Stormfather is confirmed to be older than the shards. He was there before the shattering. Why are you adding 3 weird god thingies that don't make sense?
Enjoy this final passion. I don't even get any of this stuff. I found L, but I don't know what this has to do with anything. The Pursuer runs into L, and L apparently kills him.
Mm-hmm.
You mistook me, subject. See if it really works. Raise the voidlight sphere and attached to a knife. His soul ripped itself apart. Enjoy this final passion, defeated one, he says. Is that it in terms of L, or is there anything else? Doesn't seem to be sound.
Then it says that he's checking if it still works.
Yeah, let's see. It's subject. Okay. But you mistook me. When we said we did not want to have you wait for your rebirth, was not your convenience, but mine. I am very curious, and you are the sole appropriate subject. Subject for what? Oh, to see if this really works. I will kill him. Oh, that's Pursuer. Okay. Give me the void light. No, I'm not finding it here. Oh well. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. That was a little puzzling anyway. But speaking of the listeners and singers, we don't seem to get a lot of them in this book, do we? At least not so far.
Yeah, not a whole lot of them, I would agree.
Which is kind of disappointing because I mean, they were building them up, or the previous 3 books they were building them up, and they were taking a larger and larger part in the story, and that part was probably the most interesting part. Like in Rhythm of War, the most interesting stuff has to do with the Parshendi, right?
I assumed they're having a battle at the Shattered Plains, so I assume they're going to become relevant again since they're literally in the middle of that war zone.
Yeah.
They're the only will shapers that exist. Also, why has nothing happened about the news they heard from the fucking goddamn Adolin Spren, Maya? By the way, we need to talk about Maya.
She's
really
become fully cognizant. She's become basically fully cognizant now, which is kind of a leap.
It is a big leap, and also we have point in case to notice doesn't make sense. The same thing that's affecting the Spren and the Deadeyes is the same thing that we're affecting the fucking Parshendi. None of them became fully cognizant, now did they? It took the fucking Everstorm to do that. Why the fuck is she fully cognizant now? We literally have seen this and have the effects keep hold until the fucking new god comes in to fill that part of it. Why have you broke it?
Yeah, I mean,
they
did have a bit of it in, was it Rhythm of War where she comes into where they're having the trial of the humans and she comes in and testifies, and so she's a bit more, so she's more cognizant then, but
it's a big leap, the difference. So I am fine with what we saw in Rhythm of War. It basically, what we see in Rhythm of War kind of is Adolin's bond with her is strengthening because of how much effort he's putting into it and keeping the blade. And it is helping her heal, but there's still that barrier that the Parshendi also had, keeping her like in this state. And it was really difficult for her to talk or say anything.
Yeah.
And now she is speaking full fucking sentences and fully responsive and has a fucking personality. And I'm like, what? How has this happened? It's literally been only a few fucking hours. There's not even been days. It's just a few fucking hours between the two.
Yeah, that's a little bit inconsistent. It seems like there's...
How did you fuck it up? You did it right.
She had some shock therapy.
Clearly.
But it's like, you literally did this before. How did you fuck it up now? That is a lot of what happened in this book. So much stuff he's done right before, he's done fucked up. And I'm like, what happened? You used to be able to do this. Okay. Let's talk about this for a sec. Did anyone else get pissed off about just the entire fleet of the good guys being destroyed by the Skybreakers off screen?
What? I don't even remember that.
Because it's off screen. It's literally just mentioned. They literally have it. So, like, I think it's the fleet that's bordering Taravangian's homeland, I think it is. They have the Skybreakers, like, get the Windrunners guarding them away, and then just fucking sunk the boats. That is literally what happens.
And this must be mentioned in one of those strategic... There's a couple of strategy chapters.
Yes, there's like a few places it's mentioned, and it's like, you just have their entire fleet getting sunk. And it's never... So first off, thank you for doing that off screen. I would have at least liked even an interlude of that happening. That would have been better. But you also just never suggest doing that to them, despite the fact you can easily do so. There is a million ways I could suggest this could be possible. It's not that hard. After all, you managed to do it off screen instantly. So clearly it's not that hard. You can literally fuck up their entire invasion force before they even get on your shores, and boom, one of your 3 locations which you're struggling to send defenses for, you've already won. They can't fight you. So
I love it when that happens.
On 2. Like, literally, they could just do this. Like I said, 1, you could use explosives with anti-light. Easy. 2, you can use lashings to send a shit ton of stones or whatever to put holes in the boats and pepper them and sink them to the bottom of the sea. 3, just send a shit ton of windrunners there with a bunch of radiants and fucking break the boats. They are on the sea. They are incredibly vulnerable. This is the most vulnerable they will be. This is the best time to fight them, because if you manage to sink them all now, you can then focus on your 2 battlefronts, and half of your struggles are done. You're already struggling to do 3 fronts. You can now just make it 2. How much easier is that?
Yeah.
Like,
because the plot says so.
For fuck's sake, Shallan managed to turn a boat into what? Air? She literally transformed the whole boat, I think.
I think it was just the hull.
That's good enough?
Yeah, it's a little bit frustrating. I will concur.
Send some Lightweavers. Send some Lightweavers to turn the boats into whatever, and boom, you win. Just do this. They don't need to breed. You can literally send them with some masks, put them in the fucking ocean, and have them do that away from everything. They don't have sea creatures. Most of the fused are not with that force.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'm
No,
looking
you're
at the book
fine.
again.
I'm just like...
I'm looking at the book again.
This is so frustrating. You are the person who's typically creative. Why am I having to come up with several solutions you can do, and are very easy to do, and something these people should be considering? You have tactical geniuses. Why are none of them thinking, let's do this? Why are none of you, all of you are just like, yeah, their landing on your shores is inevitable. There is nothing we can do. They are just invincible as they travel to us. No, they are not. Literally sending all the Windrunners there, while a risky move, would make more sense, because you can then just have the Windrunners once you sink the ships, just bring them back. And then send them where you need them to go. Just do something that's better than letting them come to your shores where you are in a worse spot than they would to be. Just goddamn it. Like, literally explode them. I know that for some fucking reason all the explosive radiants are with the enemy, but still, come on. Also, fucking... I like how we get no attention to the... There's another Radiant that has the 4th oath, and we just don't see him at all, or get anything about him, except that he's, like, a Stone Ward that's reached the 4th oath. I'm like, I know you kind of want to make it so... I guess I was about to make it so, like, you know, it seems that it's not just focused on the main characters or stuff happening elsewhere, but it's like... Why do we get nothing on him, though? He's one of 3 Radiants who've reached 4th oath. That would be something kind of, you know, interesting to know.
What's his name again?
I literally don't know.
Yes.
He is random Stoneward character.
Who's just reached 4th oath for some reason. It's like, why?
Randomly. Oh, and I found it. I found it.
No other characters could read... Oh, you found the name? Or you found what I'm looking for?
I think so.
What?
Nearly as much as I look forward to serving you, newest Odium, who was so recently one of them. You understand, and you are the one I've been waiting to worship, musings of El, on the first of the final 10 days. Is that what you wanted? Is that it?
That's not what I was thinking of, but it actually is... That works just as well.
Well,
El and Odium don't meet till day 2 or 3 in this.
Oh, that's right. That is a plot hole. Dang.
For fuck's sake!
How?
How does this get through? You are one of the biggest fantasy authors. You have an entire fucking team. How does that get through?
Yeah, doesn't he have a whole glob of minions to look to fact check?
Yes! This is not something you can expect from one of the biggest fantasy series ever. What the fuck? Okay, actually, I need to mention this in that fucking group chat. I was fucking right.
Yeah. Yeah, because
How? If there's any clearer way to say that something's happened, that is
I
irrefutable
mean,
proof. Fuck you.
it looks pretty strong. Like newest Odium, who used to be one of them. It sounds an awful lot like
Yes, that's like proof.
Odium. Yeah, it's awful, an awful lot like that.
Yeah, that's a legit plot hole. That's a timeline problem. Yeah, it's just frustrating. This is why we can't have nice things.
Yeah, maybe you should have stopped earlier. Maybe you shouldn't have gone for a whole 10 books, 10-volume series. I'm sure the book will be enjoyable enough when I actually get in start reading it. But yeah,
Yeah, it's just kind of sad that it's come to this. Since it's just like I really like these books. I don't want them to go the way of Star Wars, Marvel, and the rest.
I don't either. I'm like dreading the new Mistborn because there's a good chance that could also be affected by this. I need to see. I'm hoping this is like
An
either a
anomaly.
one-off or it's either an anomaly or something that he only started with this, and so he'll be able to change that in future. And he wrote Mistborn well enough before this shit. Because Mistborn he's written all at once. So, I don't know. Like, there's reason to hope and there's reason to dread.
Yeah, I have a number of problems with. One of the problems that I have is that there are kind of the inclusion of characters that are trans, but they're not characters that are trans in a way that makes sense for this. It's basically this is not really a spoiler, but in Azamir, there are women that apparently can get the paperwork to live as men.
I've heard of this.
And I'm like, that's a weirdly contemporary issue that you are throwing in there. And yes, it's done in terms of the Azish culture, but it just kind of like
yeah. I mean, there were like apparently there were like classes of people that didn't. That there were various weird classes of people, like men who are considered women or something, in various. I don't remember the details, but like in Japan, there was some weird thing, or rather that sometimes people say is like a proto-trans thing, and Nero had a kind of a trans slave, but that's kind of gross. The details would be kind of physically disgusting, so we won't go there.
Part of it is also the Azish are definitely not the culture who would have that issue. We have like Elite D had very clear gender roles. I don't think the Azish really have that clear, strict gender roles for what we see, and they're just a really heavy bureaucracy.
Yeah,
we see male and female scholars. We don't see enough of their society to even know if there is a big, like, strict difference between how men and females are supposed to act.
yeah. The Vizier is a female,
Really matter.
So
yeah, it's like Elite D had very strict gender roles. The Azish didn't, as far as we could see.
Yeah.
So that kind of thing would be like very, like, facetious.
Don't you mean anachronistic?
Maybe. It just seems unneeded and doesn't really fit as well as you would think. Cause just
extraneous, maybe.
There's probably a few different words you could put with it. It's just it does not fit with the setting as cleanly as some other stuff that's done with gender roles. Because let's face it, gender roles has been a very big thing in the series. It's not like it's never been a thing. It has been. It's because our main characters typically came from elite society, where that was a huge thing with their characters. Like Kaladin, like a lot of it was like, are there going to be female radiants? Like Shallan and Cal didn't really think about it much, or didn't really. It took a bit of like getting used to for them. And Yasuna was definitely someone who kept pushing for that kind of change.
Yeah,
And we see even Dalinar, he was a person of change for that because he was started to read and write, which was something that was typically only females in elite society would do.
yeah,
Like these were things relevant in the series, but they were done in a clean way because it fit. There were very strict rules in that society, and as the world was changing, so were the roles that they were doing. Because now something that was typically like Charblades were only able to be taken by men, but Radiants could be female, and so they could wield Shardblades. And so automatically you have that rule being broken, which leads eventually to other rules being broken.
yeah.
Especially when your ruler actively wants those changes to happen.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it makes sense in that context. So I haven't read the
Yes.
bit what the Azish yet, so I can't comment on it beyond that. But it does make sense in Alethi culture.
Yeah, it just seems. It just for me, it was just like, huh? Like, are we actually going to be doing this? Really?
Well, we have the non-binary sibling already in Rhythm of War.
Yeah, I think I'm more. I'm like, okay, that one's less noticeable because she's more of a thing rather than an actual person.
I
So
mean, she's not human, and we don't know how sexuality works with Spran. At least I don't. I haven't experimented very much with that.
maybe your plants and the spread of your plants and want to become some of your ladies.
Maybe a couple of them did bloom lately.
Ooh, how steamy!
Yes. So yeah, I'll probably better go on my walk soon. But let's see if there's any other big things because I don't remember much else from those chapters. I tried listening to them on the Reddit, but then I got this pop-up-y thing asking me what all my interests were and all that, and I said, you know what? I'm not going to deal with that. I'm just going to listen to it on YouTube. So that's what I did.
Smart. Yeah, my thing with this one was I used Reddit as a jumping off point to get to SoundCloud. That's what I did.
Yeah. Yeah. So because they've all been read. There's this channel called Silverlight Guide to the Cosmere, where they read them all. They went through the whole thing and discussed it. And it's sort of weird. They didn't get very many likes. I guess not many people know about it, although it came up pretty quickly in a search. But anyway,
Maybe I'm not sure. It wouldn't make sense to me, but since Sanderson's pretty big, at this point he's pretty much bigger than George R. R. Martin, I would say.
Well, I would say he's probably the biggest current fantasy author.
yeah,
Like, genuinely, there's no one's name who's probably more popular in fantasy than him at the moment.
Yeah, I would actually agree with that, mainly because George has not put out anything in.
Yeah, I think he might be a little bit more well known because of the show, but he's not considered the biggest now after his flops.
His flops, what do you mean?
he's not writing. I think basically, right?
He's not writing, the show failed, the House of Dragon failed. He's basically not put out anything that's good in a while.
Well, the House of Dragon didn't completely fail, but yeah.
It didn't fail, but it wasn't the gangbuster success, at least with season 2. Like, it received a lot of criticism, a lot of which the Dragon Demands did kind of push back on. I think a little bit because he's a bit of a fanboy and he probably needs to fix that. because he can't really do that with this show and keep his standards consistent. And so I don't dislike Dragon Demands. I just think that his stance on the House of the Dragon seems a little bit too fervent to be sustainable.
Yeah,
That's just my opinion.
yeah. I mean, we'll see. I mean, season 2 wasn't that bad, but yeah,
It wasn't that bad, but it wasn't. It was kind of it was an unfortunately mixed bag of.
Oh, now someone pops in again. I hope you've been enjoying the sounds of torment. By the way, want to mention
Consistent
this.
standards. I don't know what you're. I know what you're referring to. I just am not sure what exactly. I know like the context roughly, but I'm the rough reference.
I want to bring this up just because there is a way to solve this easily in the future if this is mentioned. But what's the Night Mother called again? The unmade that Shalon spoke to. I forget her name sometimes.
Oh God, it's some mushroom. Something with mushroom in it.
Ja'anat.
Oh right, I'm beg your pardon. It was right. That's right. It's Ja'anat, not the Bala Mishram thing.
Baido Mishram. Yeah.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Sha'anat worked with Teravangian to basically do what he ended up doing. So she doesn't seem to mention. Now, she is like one of the few characters that's actually good at deceiving, so it could just be she's not sharing this info, but she also seems a little bit unaware of new odium, and this is something could be solved, but we kind of need to see. Teravangian and she need to interact, because he actively knows she has worked against his goals, or well, odium's goals. So this is like, you are someone who knows that this unmade has actively betrayed a previous form of odium. Oh, right, this is why... Fuck, okay, this is why this ended up seeming like an issue to me. She mentions how odium doesn't care about her kind. And I'm like, wait, are you unaware of the new odium and that he may feel differently? Have you not spoken to him? Because this should not work. Teravangian should have 100% went to her because he already knows she is someone working against odium. He should be telling her, I took over this shard. Can we work together now? Like, that is something that should have happened. It needs to happen, because otherwise that's just a stupid decision not to actively go to someone who is currently playing both sides.
Yeah, that's a bad choice. I would actually agree with that.
It's like, literally, she is responsible for the previous odium dying. Teravangian would not have had that chance if it weren't for the help she gave. He gave him like 2 spren that once he broke would summon odium, and that's how he got his chance. She actively was part of that assassination. So, yeah, if Teravangian has not revealed himself and tried to make different relations between him and her, you are just decided to actively let one of your unmade work against you and think that, oh, I cannot work with odium.
Yeah, that's kind of you suck at it. Oh no, I know you're trolling. I'm just like, what trolling are you referring to?
But yeah, that is something I remembered as like being a really dumb thing, because that should happen. I don't know why it wouldn't happen. Why wouldn't it happen? I don't care if you're trying to deceive your whole army for some reason, as if for some reason having a new host means shit to even the people you work with. I guess maybe the fused might hate you just because you're a human, maybe, and so I can kind of get that. But I don't think the unmade give a shit. I don't think any of the unmade give a shit.
No, not really. That was my impression of them as well.
Yeah, I mean, why would they care about if you're human or not?
Yeah, they're basically just Odium's brand to an extent. They don't care. They don't have an outright hatred of humans. They just do what Odium wants. And so, yeah.
Stuckman. I just think. Well, part of the problem is Stuckman has never put out anything good in his life to compare with Sanderson and stuff. That's part of it.
What are more issues I can complain about?
And yeah, there are a lot of pacing issues. I think that Shallan's stuff in this book is mostly a waste of time. And it's really frustrating.
It takes up so much time. Okay, we were talking about that, like how. What was I saying? Right, we were talking about how a lot of time seems to be wasted in this book. It really is. There was an entire chapter just filled with people in their beds after having some horny.
Ew. I mean, yes.
It's like, why have we... What? Can we not do... Like, the Navani chapter... One of the Navani chapters was very pointless. It was kind of her just doing the... her just talking about what her duties in the towers were, and I was like, okay, you could have combined this in another chapter. Like, the first chapter she was in, the one where she was going through the vents, we don't learn... Like, you could have combined the two easily. We would have learned the same
information. We could have.
It's like, you have not been efficient at all in trying to get information across. 30 chapters in, and we did not understand the stakes at all. It was like we were desperate for any info we'd get as to where this fucking plot was going. And also, we just for some reason are accepting that Honor is not dead, or well, like the shard is not, and somehow able to be picked up. It's like, is this not a difficulty, considering everyone has been under the impression he is not, the Shard of Honor has just been fucking splintered and unusable. I get, like, Cultivation has confirmed this, but I feel like there should be some little bit of, processing of that information. Your god, who you presume dead, is also now presumed to have this power usable, and you want to become god. Which happened very fast. He jumped to the conclusion, I must become god, which, I'm sorry, how is this gonna work with the contract? What happens if Odium wins and you are Honor? Does he get full control over you?
Oh, that's a really good question.
Presumably.
One, you would genuinely... I don't know how Wit doesn't ask this. The bargain with Odium is that Dalinar serves Odium. And now Dalinar's wanting to become Honor. What the hell does this mean? It's already dangerous enough with him being a bondsmith, and I'm not sure if the Stormfather is able to leave the bond or whatever. Which I've always questioned how much value Dalinar has at that point if he's not a bondsmith, but that's a different issue. If he becomes Honor, you literally just give Odium access to a shard. A shard that is capable of releasing you. I don't think there's anything in the contract that prevents Dalinar from gaining Honor and then being ordered to let him go.
That is a very, very good point. I would definitely say that is a major hole that definitely needs to be plugged.
Yeah, because it's... I should not be... We're back in the situation where I should not be knowing this shit better than the person writing it. I should not be able to keep mentioning all of these issues. These should have been recognized and acknowledged by the person who is inventing these rules.
You would think so.
Fuck's sake.
Yeah. It's kind of frustrating, I will concur.
I had so much hope. I really didn't think it would go to shit. Sanderson was like my last bastion of like consistent quality. And this is after Nightmare Painter. I fucking hate that one. But it was like, I still was like, it's a one-off. And then this book comes out and I'm like, you fuck me. Badly.
Yeah. So I better go off my walk now because
All
it's
right, thanks for popping
getting
in. We might rant a bit longer.
getting late. So I'm gonna head off, and I assume at some later point we can go over when we've read the entire book. We can go over how did it end? Did it redeem itself, or is it still kind of
I genuinely do not think there's a way the book is going to be able to redeem itself. My biggest hope is that the ending is something good enough to have it still be something worth reading in the next part too.
yeah? Hopefully,
Like
something.
enough, like the status quo has changed in a good enough way.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, I'm off, and I'll see you next time.
See ya.
All right. See you next time, my
Night,
friend.
Because yeah, this has been a major disappointment. The fact that this is the last book you're getting of Stormlight for years too is also just salt in the wound. Because it might be another decade before he picks this shit up. Which at least that means he's gonna have a lot of time for what I'm hoping is a really bad response. I swear to God, if this book is well received, I am going to flip my shit. Because that is literally the only hope we have of it getting better is if this book gets a bad enough response by enough, like it sells poorly enough that he realizes he fucked up.
Yeah. It feels like he kind of wrote it a little bit by committee.
We have confirmation of that at this point, where he did that stupid tweet of, oh yeah, so I put like 3 different response groups for the ending, and then I did an amalgamation of all 3, and I'm like, no, how have you not learned this? You're not going to be able to please everyone. Don't try to. You're going to just end up fucking everything up. It's like, I feel like the response committees are supposed to be able to get you to judge like how people understand your work or see how it gets into certain expectations. Not so you can decide what ending to do. I feel like that's something
Yeah.
you should have decided for yourself and not be putting out to others.
Yeah, I would actually concur with that.
I know sometimes you might want to change plans and that's like a different issue, but that, like you said, you were like suggesting 3 different options. That's not you wanting to change your plan. That's you having no actual plan. And
Which is a really bad thing.
yeah, I've always kind of suspected that Sanderson didn't have the biggest like forward plan for the series, but he so far was able to make it work. Like he had enough bullet points to fill in, and I'm like, okay, if you manage to do it like it, then it's fine. But this is the first time he's managed to somehow make it fucked up. And I'm like, okay, something's went wrong in your process. I don't know what, but I would first off point to this, because this is just danger number 1.
Yeah, as well as just the fact that he is starting to cater. Like, I feel like he is trying to cater to a particular audience.
An audience who can. His audience is genuinely kind of like has a shit ton of shipper culture, and Celadon seems to be being pushed.
Yes. And shipper culture honestly ruins almost everything.
I'm gonna say this, or just there's like one of the few groups I will just casually insult because fuck them. They're degenerates. I've said this publicly and even fucking Red Hand. Shipper culture is just kind of degenerative. They just want to ship any 2 characters no matter the context. It's fucking worthless. They're just people who don't have lives, who just want to ship fictional characters together, just regardless of if there's actually any reason to. I can understand people who want to ship characters who have chemistry or whatever like that. Or, just the dark aspects of Rule 34. I will not judge if that's where you keep it. But shippers just want to ship, like, Dalinar and Zed or Cal and Zed for no fucking reason. I'm like, I'm sorry, this
Or
doesn't work.
Dalinar and
Cal.
Paladin.
Yeah, I've heard that one too. Well, from real people, it's like, no, you are basically shipping what is almost like a father-son relationship. Please shut up.
Yeah, it's a little bit weird and gross.
Very. It's like, that's kind of the part where I get annoyed with the shippers, is when the relationship between two characters does not fit for it, and actively kind of is a bit gross to do so. Like Lift right now. She is 15. And for some reason salivating over men, and I'm like, I'm sorry. The only thing I ever could see Lift salivating for anything was a burger. She is obsessed with food. When has she ever given a shit about men? She made like one dirty joke, and that seemed like decently in character because she's just a somewhat dirty-minded person. And now we have gotten her just for some reason wanting to be with men, and I'm like, I'm sorry, this is a bit fast.
It's
Why are
the
we doing
puberties.
Puberty doesn't happen within a fucking day. She wasn't salivating over men in Rhythm of War. Hell, she was, her personality has changed. Like, I mentioned this with the group, but I'm like, her personality seems to have changed a bit drastically since book 4 and 5, and I'm like, I'm sorry, there's literally no time that's passed in between. In book 4, she seems kind of annoyed that she's growing older, but she's not actually caring about the older stuff that one might expect yet. And then suddenly she is. And it's like, why? You should be happy with your situation. You're the one who made it.
Yeah, it's very strange.
Not being leader. Yeah, not being leader of the Edge Dancers is something I would expect her to be very okay with. She wouldn't want responsibility. She likes being in the know, but she doesn't like responsibility. Mm-hmm. She actively runs away from it.
Do you think he's stalling because he's catering, or he's catering because he's stalling?
He doesn't need a fucking cater. That's a weird.
Well, but he is, right? So which came first here, do you think?
What do you mean?
Like, is he doing this catering because he's kind of like run out of ideas and he's trying to fill space, or is he trying to cater to an audience and it's causing the plot to stall out?
I don't know. But I swear, if you don't have much to write on what is your biggest series, you have other issues. I'm sorry. And also, you should have just waited. I'm sorry. Don't lock yourself into a schedule of releases if you feel like you need more time. Also, you had 4 years. Also, you've been writing so much shit in between. I'm like, I'm sorry. You have no excuse. You don't. And he really shouldn't need to cater because, again, he's managed to do the Kickstarters, which means he's able to eliminate the middleman if he wants to. Like, that's supposed to make it so he's not really beholden to anyone. That's what has been, like, many times mentioned by those annoyed by this weird change. It's like, you don't have to, but you are choosing to regardless, and no one understands why. Give me a sec, I need to go check something. I'll be back.
Okay.
Do you think the writing has gone down in quality?
By quite a bit, yes.
Yeah, that's a shame. It's like the prose itself.
Yeah, the prose itself is a lot weaker, which is very frustrating. It's gone down lame tangents, which is very frustrating as well. And just overall feels like a completely different world to how it used to be, which is very annoying.
How so exactly?
Well, it's just like it's just so frustrating in terms of what he is kind of like seems to be trying to accomplish, as well as just the fact that it's much slower than it should be. Like, the plot should be actively ramping up, but instead it's meandering slightly, and that's really frustrating.
I get it. You think the scale of the series has changed?
What do you mean exactly by
scale? I'm sure. Like I'm coming this as an answer, so I'm here to be just Socratic. Like you said, like it changed. Like you're saying that some things changed. If you're just saying, like the quality changes in obvious, but do you think he's trying to make it too big in scale, make it too small in scale, or scope? I guess is maybe the better word.
It feels like he has run out of things to do with the individual characters. And that's really frustrating.
Interesting. You think he's taking them? He's run out of places to take their like personalities, like their character archetype.
Yeah.
Even if he was willing to be daring about it, you couldn't see anything.
Yeah. I honestly am really kind of frustrated with just what all he's done with this series. Like because I really like this series. I really enjoy this series.
I mean, even I know who Brandon Sanderson is. I'm so out of it, but like, I'm not so out of it. I consider Michael Kirk right. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. But interesting. Could he? I mean, is this more of a character thing than a plot thing?
Well, for one thing, there are multiple unfortunate plot holes that seem to be originating with this story that are very frustrating. There's a lot of stuff that is a little bit odd in terms of him finding stuff to do for his characters and just overall making it just like, Mr. Sanderson, what exactly is going on here? I have no idea what you're trying to do.
I see. No, I mean, I don't know enough to commentate effectively. Why am I here? No. Just trying to fill the void here.
You're fine.
No, yeah, I'm just trying to think. What is this? Well, I'll ask you this. I'll describe. What did you like best about the series before things started going south?
I really like the character work in that it actually has aspirational characters that don't feel like carbon cutouts. They actually feel like people that have struggles and issues that make sense, I guess.
What do you mean by aspirational exactly? Just we're on the same page.
They are good people who struggle.
You mean they're people to aspire to?
Yes, they are people to aspire to in terms of they are good people. They just have struggles with mental health and stuff like that.
Okay, no, I get that. Do you think there was any? I hesitate to use this word, but do you think there was any sort of like obvious or potential way that he could have taken one of the characters that he didn't, and that kind of surprised you, or thought was a mistake?
I think Shallan's multiple personality, a specific character's multiple personality disorder, has been a little bit of a mistake so far, which is very unfortunate because I actually did like that character, but the problem is how she's been taken is kind of lackluster and annoying.
Yeah. Curious.
Okay, toward what Trip asked. This is difficult considering I myself am struggling with. Okay, I myself am struggling with deciding if it's even worth continuing. But the first 3 books really are excellent. They have part of the reason we were frustrated is because it is stuff which we have been hoping to see a climax and conclusion for that's getting kind of ruined and subverted. the characters are very compelling. Cal's arc in the first 3 about protecting people is one which is a very realistic depiction of someone who is very depressed and beaten down, but trying to constantly regain hope and keep struggling through conflict. Dalinar trying to claim more and more responsibility, while trying also not to, in a way. He is someone who has tried to claim stuff he has wanted and made massive mistakes in doing so that he regrets. And it has made him very hesitant, but it is very much in part of who he is to take command of situations. And he has kind of had to accept that and realize he needs to be comfortable with the reins again as he tries to help save the world. I know you find Shallan annoying, but I honestly did feel like her appearance was best in book 3.
2, you mean?
I actually liked her in 3.
Oh,
2
okay.
is fine. 2 is fine, but her flashback chapters are admittedly a bit annoying. I tend to skip them. Something about them tend to bore me. But yeah, like they're very compelling characters and climaxes that are just in a big rush. It's a very well-developed world that really handled their issues well. It is specifically this book that has managed to fuck it up completely. Even Rhythm of War was just like kind of mixed bag. Shallan was the worst part of it, but the rest of the stuff could have worked if they had properly followed through on them in the next book. They just did not.
Which is very frustrating, to say the least.
Yeah. I know that Trip is gonna just say fuck you or whatever, but I do know people who just generally read the books and then skip the parts they don't like. You can somewhat do that with Shallan to some extent if you feel like it's just not doing anything or just being annoying or whatever. You can somewhat follow along and keep the parts that you like. Not completely. I know that's not the optimal way to read it. I just know people tend to do that. And they are big fans of the series. Yes, I know. You don't need to tell me. Yeah, no, I'm aware. Neil, continue to book 3. Those first 3 are really good. Whether it's worth continuing after that, we are going to have to see.
Yeah.
Because, as I think even Chips mentioned, there are some books you tend to dislike in many series, even Wheel of Time, and you still tend to continue them. If he manages to come back in book 6, I think it would still be worth it. You'll just have to suffer through a book. Or find the cliff notes, for one. With how the book's been progressing, you honestly could probably cliff note everything you need.
Yeah.
Because it's...
Yeah, I would concur.
It is a very interesting story. The magic's typically done really well. All of these statements I am praising is obviously not including the disaster that is Wind and Truth. But it was good, which is why I will always want to pop a cap in Dane's ass. Oh yeah, I like Triss too. Honestly, the only comic book I would call bad is The Nightmare Painter and now Wind and Truth. The only two.
What even was the Nightmare Painter? I can't say that I've read that one. Hello?
I'll answer in a second. I'm checking on Done.
What is done exactly? I'm both curious and worried at the same time.
He named his cat after you or something.
Dunn seems to be finished and well brownified.
Nah, I'm worried. He's eating his cat.
Okay.
And to answer your question, Dunn, I am making something which I will be sending to you, Trip and Ness. And my friends for Friendsgiving told me a funny story of how they named their chicken after someone they knew, and then described cooking the chicken using their name.
Thank you.
Sorry for the noise. I am downstairs. But yeah, I decided to name what I am making after you because of that and it being hilarious. I was gonna do a series where I named the first after you, then after Trip, and then after Ness, because I expected the first batch to fail, but it seems to have succeeded. So congrats, Dunn. You managed to surprise me and succeed in being a successful batch.
Uh-huh. Well, there are worse things, I suppose.
Yeah, see, you're a well done batch. The fact that this kind of goes into the clothing joke is not intentional, but definitely enhances it. But
Okay.
right, Nightmare Painter is one of the novellas, and the reason I don't like it is because it is a twist that is very unforeshadowed in the book, like a really massive one that basically recontextualizes everything and is foreshadowed terribly, and it forces a relationship which was like, please don't. It was one of the two things where you can tell the two main characters were having, oh, they're gonna fuck energy, but not because they had good chemistry and everything, it's just because they were main characters. And it happened, they became a relationship. I was like hoping she would die. I was like, please let her die, please, please, please. And no, she lived. Fuck.
No, I want her to die. Dang it, she did die. I actually used that joke in in a different book series where it was like where this married couple are just listening to a radio drama because that's the kind of world they live in. Where rather than watching TV, they listen to the radio and it's a serial, and they're like, oh, just wait, it'll be this person that gets to kill the monster. And she's like, oh no, come on, I would hate that. That would be awful. So
yeah. So yeah, it's just like, it was a book I had to force myself to read. That is the only one, and I don't want to reread it ever. I like the concept of the magical creatures in it. They just, nothing in it was very satisfying. It was all very basic and dumb. And if not, just actively, like, please don't. Tress I enjoyed. Tudlet Man I also enjoyed, though a little bit less so. That book admittedly felt kind of like a bit of a side tangent. An interesting one, admittedly, but still kind of like, I like Tress better than Sunlit Man. But yeah, what else were we having to answer? Trip, do you have any other questions you want to torture us with? But like, I still recommend his first 3 books. I really do. They do really well. Nope, you're just gonna hear our torment. Great, thank you a lot. Give me a sec while I think of what I want to complain about next.
Well, I suppose maybe I'll ask you the same question I asked Dunn. Do you think that there was what did I ask you exactly?
That the scale of the series has gotten too big for it.
Yeah, well, even too small. Right? Do you think there's a scale problem that's going on? Do you think he's trying to do too much?
No, he hasn't had a problem with scale before. Here's the thing. The scale in the first book and the scale in the third book are drastically different. They escalate a lot, but that has never been an issue. It has managed. He has managed to have the scales escalate in a progression in which the reader can understand there's a lot more at stake than a nation or even just the world. And I think with how he managed to do it, it was fine. I don't think it's a scale problem. I think it's a time issue now. Because he's reached the scale he can go at this point. It's like a lot of the conflict references other planets who have interest in what's happening here. And that was always where the series was going. And it's going to be, like, the next book is going to start including more people from other series. So it's like, it's not a scale issue, in my opinion.
No, that's probably great, though. I'm sure to be Socratic about it. Do you think there was an obvious thing that he could have done? Or maybe learn for that. Do you think there was something that if he had done otherwise, it would have drastically improved things? Like even just a small thing.
Okay, here's the thing. I think I could write the fifth book better than he did. That's the best way I can answer that.
Fair enough. I mean, you don't see
because I've had conversations with my friends, or not friends, but like I have a group where we've been talking about Wind and Truth. There's like 40 people in there, and I sometimes occasionally go in a rant. And one of the things I typically bring up is what could have been done and the stuff that he hasn't returned to or stuff like that. And it's like there is so much shit he could have done to make it good. These are things that you would expect based on what we know of the characters, the history, everything that would have made it work really well, and then he just doesn't. Like the only reason I am never like always wanting to say I can do this something better than the actual writers, because I don't necessarily know where they're going with their conclusion. But when I see character interactions and stuff like that, I'm like almost always confident in this book I could do it better, because I have knowledge of the character to have him interact with other characters in a way which suits how they have been shown.
So then, which is fine. So I'll phrase it like this: what's the smallest thing that you would change? Like this is the game to always play with this kind of thing, right? Like what is the least change you can make to have the best effect?
That is, define what you mean by smallest, because that can be taken a few different ways.
Like just like it changed the least amount of things in the narrative overall, but it has like the most positive effect. Like just to use like just a general example, right? Like Star Wars Episode 1, right? Like you could rewrite that thing 10 different ways, right? But small change you make is like let's just say you remove Jar Jar, right? Like I actually don't think that would solve every problem, but let's say you remove Jar Jar, right? That's a small change that creates a massive effect, right? Or you make Anakin an adult, or a teenager, right? Things like that. I'm just using Star Wars reference because I got the galaxy far away on the brain. But little things like that. Whether it's the characterization of a character, like I'll give you another example, right? From the Hobbit movies, which I kind of like overall, actually, despite their flaws. But to not to belabor this point too much, right? One of the things they decided to do was and I understand the problem here because they needed a villain beyond Smaug the dragon, because the dragon dies and then there's a battle, right? So they introduced the Azog character, right?
Mm-hmm.
Azog should have just been Bolg, and then you have like a really interesting like cycle of revenge story happening, and that completely gives a whole layer to the whole arc of the movies between Thor and Azog, or Bolg now rather. So, that's a tiny change that creates a whole difference.
Whole ripple effect.
Exactly. Luke Leia shouldn't be said like it's stupid.
Okay, I'm thinking. Because by small, you seem to be thinking kind of like characterized rather than a broad concept.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't have. I'm just, I just mentioned
A
character
tiny
things,
change.
like a tiny change, right?
Stop focusing on therapy.
Yeah, that would be a big thing that I would change as well.
Because that's a big. It's like a directional issue with the characters at this point. Paladin is like the pinnacle of this because he's out. The word therapist is outright used for him now. But every character has kind of been doing this where they're heavily focusing on the mental health of people and themselves. It's like, this was never the focus. This was a theme. The
Yeah,
characters themselves did not focus on this. If a character focused on it, it was something specific to that character, like Lift. It was never something the characters constantly talked about with everyone. And also, honestly, is unrealistic as fuck. People do not just constantly talk about their mental health. They don't feel like people anymore, and partly because of that. Is that like people dealing with issues in a natural way? It's now just like, oh, please talk about your issues with me. Like they're genuinely trying to be a therapist. It's like, please shut the fuck up.
I think for me, it's the problem with this one is, at least with Shallan, it's basically feels like he is having trouble coming up with ways to keep her relevant.
So here's the thing. It's not there's just too many subplots or something like that. It's that because there's the same amount of plots, they're just no longer supporting each other like they used to, like I said earlier. They used to be connected in a way. Now they're not. It feels way too much like several very separate plot lines that don't connect well compared to earlier where there was the same amount of plot lines, but they all supported and interacted with each other in some way before oftentimes coming together. So yeah, that is like, it's not about too many. It's not done well. Fuck, there was a thought that was coming in my head and now it's not forming properly. Right, that's what I was thinking. I was like, what can I make Shallan do in this book that would make it better? Here's the thing. Give a clear reason for why Ba Adoa Shrim is relevant to the contest.
Yeah.
That is the thing they have failed to do. They have just made it so it's like, oh, the Errol is going to end, but we're going to focus on this unmade that this organization who we don't know the goals are, or is going to possibly affect things. It's like, no. Establish exactly why Ba Adoa Shrim is relevant. Explain precisely why. This is part of the issue. You have not established the goals of the Ghostbloods properly enough for us to assume they are a main threat to the competition. In
There's
fact,
also another issue is that Baido Mishram is a little bit too much of a mystery box in a way.
A little bit.
The best word ever.
I feel like the way her existence isn't that bad. It's been heavily referenced constantly as an issue.
Yeah, that she is the thing that she was the person that took over from Odium after the defeat, after the last desolation.
Yeah. And that she seems to be very connected to the consequences to Sprin and Pashendi.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, so we know her relevance to that. All you need to do is give her a proper relevance to the main conflict happening now. For instance, why is the Odium side uninterested in finding their other unmade? This is never acknowledged.
They do technically acknowledge it. I don't know whether or not you can say that it's good or not.
Tell me what it is.
So the idea is that he is deliberately ignored, but deliberately left by Mishram where they are because it seems like she does not like Odium and would actually try to replace him. That's the justification that is given later. Yeah, it's a little bit dumb.
Here's the thing, meta reason? You're trying to just give a reason as to why your side isn't doing anything about her.
because you want to ignore her rather than actually finding a reason to start including her. You managed to create the fucking wind god thingy, but you won't just let the new Odium decide, hey, I want this unmade back. You could have honestly had it so Rice, the person who has outright been called an egomaniac by a character who knows him very well, you can have him be like, I don't want this unmade who tried to replace me back in my repertoire, but Taravangian is not an egomaniac. You could have easily had him decide, I want this unmade back in my service. I don't give a shit what they tried to do.
Yeah, there's also another problem that we don't know exactly how much information Taravangian has access to, and even then it's just kind of a...
There are certain things we can assume, though. One of his unmade is one you can very safely assume.
Okay.
Because he has access to so much info, it's like, I'm sorry, if it's stuff directly related to the vessel, or not the vessel, to the shard, I think it's a cop-out to try and say, oh yeah, he doesn't know about this.
Yeah, that's why I say it's a little bit inconsistent what information he has.
Yeah, which
as well
is
the timeline issue with Musings of L, I think it was.
Yeah, and this is why I was pissed off with like Shallan in book 4. It was like her entire arc was based on inconsistent information being made aware to the 3 personalities, and one just suddenly being able to hide an action they did from all the other 2. It's like, why? This is literally not how it's shown to ever be, but for some reason, this specific instant it did, and it's what basically is the entire arc. And now it's kind of this. What you're saying seems to be describing that Taravangian's knowledge is being inconsistent, which is offering inconsistent results. And it's like, no, be somewhat consistent. I know there's like you don't always want to nail it down, but there are certain things you need to have be safe to assume. And if it's connected to the shard, that should be safe to assume. He's seeing the same shit that Dalinar is trying to look for, and he's a god. So, fuck off.
Yeah.
And again, why not include it? It's literally better to have Ba-Adoshrim be included in the main plot. You are currently having her remain separate. We have no idea how Shallan looking for her furthers the goals of anyone. We know it's going to help the singers and the Spren, most likely, but we have no idea if that's actually going to help them in what they're needing in the next 10 days. This is something you could wait until the conflict is over. It's not like it's going to change. And you again don't know what the fuck the Ghostbloods want. You don't even know how able they are to do it. They're not a fucking bondsmith. It took a bondsmith to shove her in the goddamn spiritual realm. So, yeah. You don't even try and communicate with the Ghostbloods. You literally don't know their goals. You literally could just ask them, what the fuck do you want? And we'll see if this is in our interest. They've tried negotiating with the fucking Odium side. They've literally tried this. They're not just outright wanting to be your enemy. Seriously. That could be a Shallan retardation issue, but it's like, she assumes just so much shit while acknowledging she knows so little. And it's like, you don't know their goals. You don't know if they're actively opposed to you. You don't even know if they care what happens to you. For all you know for positive is that they wanted to find a way to get Stormlight off-world, which should not be something you care about. It's not like it's a limited resource they're stealing from you. It's literally something that's unlimited, which they're trying to find a way to transport.
Well, the idea is that it is difficult to get investiture from one planet to another.
Yes, but that's not something that's like directly opposed to what Roshar is doing. That's just like it seems like they're just trying. Hustle. Yeah, it's like, hey, we have our own conflict. This will help us in our own conflict, so we're going to try and find a way to do this. Because from what I know of the Ghostbloods, their whole focus is on Scadrial. and learning how to use investiture like this is basically just a good thing for them to do. They like collecting investiture because it's a rare resource on Scadrial. But it's very plentiful in Roshar. This is like outright mentioned. It's why Vajar is even there. Vajar needed a lot of investiture because that's how the gods in the Warbreaker world work. They basically feed off of it or they die. And Roshar has a fucking high storm that basically just feeds him investiture every couple days. So it's perfect for him. Scadrial, meanwhile, the investiture is limited to fucking metal, and it's not very versatile. Meanwhile, Stormlight, we've seen them outright use other investiture in different ways. So they're able to just fucking use that shit to power everything. It's like, none of what we know about the Ghostbloods necessarily says they're going to outright fuck you over in what you're doing. But you're going to act like it and therefore make them an enemy. And again, this can be fixed. Just make it so Ba Adosh Rim does something that's relevant to the conflict. She is an unmade and a very powerful one. This should not be hard to do. Just literally have the new Vestal of Odium want to get her back. She outright hates humans. Why the fuck does she even hate Odium? She literally only has, like, the only thing we know of her character is that she's very obsessed with singers, and this is also invented just in this book that she hates humans. You didn't have to have her hate humans.
Yeah.
You created your own issue.
Yeah, unfortunately.
This is also kind of how I feel with, I feel like Sanderson feels like he's done something bad with the power scaling. It's like, I think you've made that a problem when it didn't need to be. The Radiants were not so powerful, I believe they could never be killed. They're hard to kill, yes, but not impossible. You literally have a fused who knows how to kill them, almost kill Cal at the start of book 4. You didn't need to depower him necessarily, but you feel like you need to, because at this point, I think he feels there's a power creep. It's like, okay, have you not actually tried to see how it could be solved without creating an anti-weapon? Or hell, just have the regeneration less good. You literally have, like, levels of regeneration. Edge Dancers and Truth Watchers have specifically regrowth, which makes their regeneration a lot better, but the rest of the Radiants have it much slower.
Yeah, true.
You literally made a weapon that can suck out Stormlight. Why is this, like, for fuck's sake? That was something that did frustrate me with WoW. It seemed like Sanderson was making a problem as he was trying to solve the problem while it didn't exist. Like, there were other solutions you could go to before the ones you did, but you decided to go straight towards, oh, this is power creep. Let's create a solution for power creep, when you just could have just made it so there wasn't a power. Like, part of the reason you even need that is you made the numbers too big. In book 3, we literally have like only 1 or 2 members for an order. And then in book 4, it's like fully fledged with a shit ton of members. You could have just controlled how many Radiants there were. And that would have probably helped. Because if there's only a few or a lesser number, then yeah. Like, this was something Steve was annoyed about. They mentioned sending thousands of fused to the Shattered Plains. It's like, they have thousands? How did they ever get that many? And how many Radiants do we have? And they end up saying something like in the hundreds, and it's like, what the fuck? Why do the fused have thousands, but the Radiants have only hundreds? And why did you make that the case?
My only assumption is that just the fact that any listener can technically become a fused, and there are a lot of the fused, so that's my thought. I could be wrong though.
I don't know. Did you feel there was a power creep in Oathbringer at all?
Good question. A little bit, but not a bad one. I think that the main thing was um uh there's it seems like they're rapidly becoming Wolverine in certain cases, but I didn't see any problem with it, considering that the bad guys are pretty
as powerful.
Yeah, that they are as powerful in many respects.
I think part of why maybe the power creeps happened, the regeneration's really good, but there was a limitation of Stormlight, and that has not been as acknowledged when it comes to their power. That's a very limited resource that, unless they have a high storm with a bondsmith, like one of those two things, it's always a more limited resource that they have to keep track of.
Mm-hmm.
And that is control. So it's like they really were not Wolverine. They could be harmed enough to be killed. And that's why I'm like, yeah, I don't think there was a power creep necessarily. You just literally, there were ways to kill the Radiants. You're just acting like they're unkillable now. And you should definitely have had the Fused, who are people used to this, know exactly how to hurt them. For instance, you don't need to be lethal with Radiants. You just need to keep damaging them until their Stormlight's depleted and then fuck them up. Especially since the Fused seem to be able to keep their Void Light a lot better. And so they didn't have as much of the regeneration issue. And they return. That was like a big thing with them. They can keep coming back. The Radiants can't. It's just, again, I think there are things to try. They did not try them. Which is really weird when, again, the guy known for magic systems just doesn't try to find a solution and instead just creates another magical one. I'm like, why did you do this?
Yeah.
Like, I've been actually really waiting to see how certain powers have been used more, because genuinely, there's a lot of interesting stuff you can do. You have stone wards, you can literally mold stone to their will and make constructs. That's something you can work on a lot in battle and make some really interesting shit. But we haven't ever even gotten to see that. I've been wondering, like, what are you doing with Lightweavers? Seem to be only used for fucking spy shit. I'm like, I'm sorry, is no one gonna show a Lightweaver who actually does combat? Because they would be really good. You can really make use of illusions in combat.
Yeah. I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah, like, you literally just need to beat that. Just try and think of what you would do if you had that power to try and help you survive or others survive, or what. Just like, I'm basically just describing how to be creative with something, which he should know how to do. He's done this before. If you really try, and like, you have scholars characters in this who would be thinking about this. Like, something that I saw suggested, and just like a 17 shard post, I may hate them, but they at least have good ideas sometimes. Like, just taking shit like bricks and shit and using lashings to basically make them rain down on an enemy sideways. Because, you know what fletchings are?
Yeah, they're what's on an arrow to make it fly properly.
Yes, but I believe I'm either mispronouncing it, or they're also so there's like little metal arrowheads that used to be dropped from planes, like a shit ton of them, and they were capable of just piercing through helmets. And so it would just basically kill anyone underneath the zone.
Oh, a flesh. Let me see. Since I know Shad's brought it up.
Yes, this is probably something I learned from him, but it's like, he was in his video on, I think,
Dragon.
Angels?
No, it was Dragons.
It might have been Dragons.
So he was like, well, what if they just Dragon Riders don't have weapons? They just have toss these missiles.
Yeah, I think that's something in the Dragon video. Yeah, so it's like that is a medieval thing that they could easily do, and with the lashings make it a lot better. So I'm like, why don't you do this? Because it would be really devastating. And it's kind of that shit. I'm like, where's the creativity with all of this? We don't like this is part of a thing with Sanderson. He has the expectation from his audience, because this is something he does, to use powers in new ways. We don't want to just see superheroes punching each other. We want to see them being clever.
Flechettes. A big old longbow might be difficult because the bottom end of the bow could be hit and the wings are maybe in front. There is another type of kind of more projectile thingy that could be really useful with dragons, and it's the same weapon that we discussed on angels, and that is the flechette. The flechette,
I told you,
wasn't developed.
I told you it was also in the angel video, but yeah, flechettes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
These would be great to see Windrunners use. Do we see them use it? No. Why? I don't know. I feel like this is something that should be eventually have been brought in.
Yeah.
They keep talking about strategies with Radiance and stuff, and I'm like, why has no one talked about the many uses you powers have? You literally control base forces of the universe.
Yeah.
Why has no one, like the Mink or some shit, just went crazy thinking of incredibly dangerous ways to use this? There's like human nature.
Yeah. That's kind of the rule of humanity. It's either we will use it for recreation or war. Those are basically the endpoints of every invention that we have.
Yeah. If it can't destroy something, we'll see if we have fun with it.
Well, destroy with it, I guess.
Yes.
Like computers. Well, since a computer, you can use it to destroy, you can use it to have fun. It also functions as a help in various workplace scenarios. So I guess that's kind of weaponizing it to a certain extent, or maybe to basically just make.
I think part of the saying is a lot of these advancements often come when we're trying to weaponize something, and someone else will typically see a different application. Like this is not war related, but one of the the MRI, right?
Kind of, yeah.
The reason that was invented was because someone from NASA was trying to find a way to recognize elements from far off and figured out that elements gave off different wavelengths or vibrations, and someone realized you could do that to look in a human body.
Mm-hmm.
They're like two completely unrelated fields, but discovering one affects the other, and this is very common with war. War will often be find out different shit that can be used in other places, or see stuff in other places and immediately think, how can I use this to kill someone? It's like the most common one. Yeah, hence why everyone says that's like human nature to see if we can use something to destroy or kill someone. It's because war is just like the biggest and most common inspiration for that. Not necessarily because it's the only one. Because we almost are always trying to see if we can kill someone better.
Almost the entirety of human history is the history of warfare.
Pretty much. A lot of shit can be tracked with that. And we have not stopped. We are still trying to see if we can kill each other better.
There is no end to history.
Mm-hmm. Hence why it's a constant. Especially at these times where there's a shit. Like, Fabrials have been getting more advancements, and it's like, yeah, we should probably be paying attention to this. Because Fabrials are now something anyone can access to some extent.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
That is something I've been somewhat upset with. because you can understand it for early on in the series as characters start to learn more about their powers. Because even then, you still saw the occasional creative application, but they're also new to them. We have now had timeline skips and a lot more people using them. There should definitely be more creative applications, which would be very useful when you're trying to fight certain enemies. Like even Wit kind of mentions and talks about it, where he's like watching the battle happening in his ear, and he's like, warfare is just changing, and it's like, yes, it is, and we should probably be seeing that as people try and be more creative with this. We're currently kind of in a World War I scenario where they're still using old tactics but with new powers, and so a lot of death would be happening as people haven't yet changed to take that into account.
Yeah, that would be kind of frustrating.
What else is relevant to complain about? Let me see. And I'd like to remind everyone this is because I love the series and the world, and this is why I'm pissed. Hell, I am just kind of now hoping some fan person who's actually good at writing just does the Dark Cosmere universe.
Yeah.
I'm honestly surprised that no one has tried to teach them guns. I don't get this.
I know there is an idea for that in one of Brandon Sanderson's extras that he read was that he there was I think it was a Skybreaker with a shard rifle.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. And this is like very far future advanced stuff, basically using the shard blades to make a gun. And I think that's really cool. I'm not completely sure how it would work, but it's like cool and a logical progression, and fits with what I was saying. Is like, why is no one trying teaching Rosharans about guns? You have people from other worlds. It's just like, it's a weird thing of you have people from other worlds, some who know about guns, and I'm like, okay, are we ever going to answer about why we never teach Rosharans guns? Because, I feel like guns would be pretty useful against singers. We kind of forget that singers are their main force.
Yeah, but it doesn't really think about that, I guess.
I don't know. I feel like there should be some acknowledgement of there at some point or another. Just because there's a lot of people with different knowledges coming to Roshar, and I feel like that can easily influence technology. And if someone wants to influence Roshar, an easy way of doing that is giving them a new weapon. Anyways, thinking. Right, we also don't... I think I mentioned this earlier, but I got sidetracked. We don't get to hear about the Spren reacting to the news about the Recreants. So many Spren are refusing to bond because of it, that it's made their forces smaller. And now we just, haven't yet acknowledged the most important news you can give to the Spren.
That it was actually a consensual thing.
Yes, the Radiants did not kill you. It was something they didn't realize would happen and agreed upon by both sides.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just... And again, stuff like the Shallan conversation with Notem, I felt was something that was like so surface level in their conversation about the bond and implications. I was like, can you please go deeper? If you're gonna touch on this, can you please give more than what you're doing? Because what you're saying is obvious and seems made for 8-year-olds. You've gone deeper into these kinds of issues before. Please delve a little deeper into context on these. Because they're interesting stuff to talk about, but you need to be willing to talk about it.
Yeah. But they haven't.
Nope. listeners are not acknowledged, despite the fact that what happens to the world will heavily influence them. They should definitely. Honestly, I'm surprised they fucked off. You really should have probably had a conversation of, hey, the fate of the world's about to be decided, and this will directly affect you. You might want to help out for a bit. And they, for some reason, got to say somehow bonded a Chasm Fiend. I'm still not completely sure how they did that.
My understanding on that one was that they haven't necessarily bonded the Chasm Fiend. It's more that it has like they formed a symbiotic relationship with it, I guess.
With the listeners?
Yeah, that's my understanding at least.
That seems weird. The listeners used to hunt them.
Yeah.
What the fuck? That just feels like a very strange thing to develop, that somehow Chasm Fiends become friendly with a group that occasionally comes to kill them.
The way that they explain it is that the listeners show that they're dominant, I suppose. That's the
So Chasm Fiends are tameable? Or not even like
evidently, yes. This is
how would this work? It can literally kill them.
Well, it's kind of the idea that smaller beings have killed enough of them, so that's the logic they use. I'm like,
that's not how taming works, though. Like, it's an individual thing, not a group thing.
I know. They have semi-intelligence, and they actually apparently are able to share sense stuff with with listeners through some kind of telepathic bond. Or telepathic communication. It's very strange. I'm not sure I fully understand it enough to critique it.
I feel like it's just a weird development for what should have just remained a cool creature of the world, because we know that the elite, they were already planning on kind of using them for farming to some extent. They want to just like keep off an area and then kill them in a way where they can keep them alive but keep taking their gem hearts. Which I was like, yeah, that's a good way to use them. Like, that felt like a natural progression in the world, and understandable with their size and power. Like, these things can fucking kill shard bearers.
Yeah. Well, they can kill entire battalions.
Yeah, they are genuinely a dominant species. There's no fucking way they would ever just start listening to another group. They're not dogs.
Yeah.
When we killed off the woolly mammoth, they did not start to go like, oh, there's lots of humans killing us. We are going to now obey them. That did not happen. That's not how creatures work.
Yeah. Well, we should probably conclude it here. I got to get going. But yeah, that was interesting. I'm just like, it's really weak. It's just kind of disappointing. I would definitely say it's kind of interesting. Would you say that this is worse or Arcane Season 2 is worse? Because I'm a little bit more angry at Arcane Season 2 than I am at this.
Let me think on that for just a second, because I do feel Arcane Season 2 had almost no redeeming qualities, and this still has like some redeeming quality. But I would say I'm far more pissed off at this because we had 4 books. I was waiting years, and they should not have been screwed up. I had it's same with Arcane Season 2, where they shouldn't have screwed up either. But I'd say Sanderson had more resources than Arcane. Like, if between the two to fail, Arcane would definitely be one, especially if they're forced into only a second season. Arcane is more likely to have screwed up than Stormlight 5, where the biggest fantasy author for his biggest magnum opus series, who has all the resources he can get, and he's somehow still fucked up. And I don't get why.
Yeah.
I am positive I could write Arcane Season 2 or Stormlight 5 better than what we're getting. but I'm not completely sure on what direction I would take with Arcane Season 2 in like only one season. While I would have a much better idea on where I'd want to take Stormlight 5.
Yeah, in a way that would be at least satisfying to.
Yeah, because I know what's been set up, and I know at least a few ways I could try and have it conclude that would really like satisfy the audience, make things progress in a way, and keep things good. Like I think I can make one that people would be happy with, and I think would be good. Much more with 5 than with Arcane Season 2. But yeah, it's like, so I'd say I probably am hating this one more. Yeah. I'm still pissed at Season 2, Arcane Season 2, because I've also talked a shit ton about the wasted opportunity with that. Let's not get wrong. When that happens next week, we'll rant. But
yeah,
fuck's sake. Both of these had all the resources they needed. They had the pieces.
and then they messed it up.
And I don't know why. It's not even something where, like, that's always a stupid part. It's not something that died out of the gate. It had potential, and they wasted the potential. And you don't get why, because the only reason it's wasted is because you managed it for a while.
Yeah, and it was just kind of weird because Arcane now Season 1 feels more like a fluke in light of Season 2.
It's like, but how do you even fluke? I don't get how you fluke something good. I really don't. A lot of that shit you kind of need to do, like, intentionally to some extent, especially with Sanderson. So much has to be thought through to have it fit. So how do you, I just don't get it. So much of this shit you did well before. I make so many parallels, especially to Oathbringer, because that one has like a slow beginning to other people too, but I'm like, it managed to convey so much more information in its beginning than this. All the characters were doing stuff, and you didn't really feel bored. I never felt like it was slow, but that's what other people feel. But this one, I definitely say is slow and just not conveying what it needs to. Despite
the urgency feels gone.
It's like, for fuck's sake, you should have had, you know how in like A Memory of Light there was this like constant battle for a while? Like that's how it should feel here. Just constant battle everywhere. Because it's the last final 10 days. There is a time limit.
Yeah, but unfortunately it doesn't. And that's the sad part.
Yeah. This should have been your big banger. And I was honestly kind of hoping like we'd get this and they would lose at the end. Something to set up for the next series after this. I was really kind of hoping for that. And I was like, like my biggest concern for a while was just if he would just have them plain out win or not. Because I was hoping he would have the balls to make them lose a bit and then wait 10 years. Because I know, well, some people might be pissed off. I was like, that is probably what I would hope for most in the ending. Because I would be the best way to end it, I think, is some sort of loss for the heroes. But then I have other concerns. Many concerns.
Yeah, this has kind of been a year of letdowns, which is unfortunate. We can never depend on anything anymore these days. Yeah, because Arcane Season 1 was a letdown. House of the Dragon was kind of a letdown. Rings of Power we knew was going to be a clown show no matter what happened. Joker 2 was a massive letdown that I'm just like, I'm not even going to watch this. The word of mouth was so bad.
It was really bad.
Let's see. Kind of everything. Well, Deadpool and Wolverine is a kind of bad movie that I enjoy. That is how I would characterize it. It kind of ruins the character of Deadpool a little bit and doesn't really execute its premise really well. And the introduction of the use of the TVA was a very dumb idea. Should have been something else because the the TVA is kind of a cancer on Marvel at this point and should be excised from the universe.
Yeah, but at this point, Marvel is dead, and we've kind of accepted it.
Yeah, true.
This wasn't dead.
Yeah, it just kind of killed itself. All right. Well, we should probably we'll call it good there. Thanks everybody for coming. It's been a journey for sure. I definitely would say that I would not recommend Stormlight 5 unless you're really interested. Listed in how it ends because, man, I'm pretty disappointed, to be perfectly honest. It's really frustrating how far it's fallen, and it just, it's so frustrating. All right, well, we'll call it good for today. See everybody later. Bye.